Welcome to the Chosen Devotional Day 29, Presence, Part 2. Presence. Let's look at Mark 2, 25 to 28. Mark 2, verse 25, I'm going to back up, give you two bonus verses. We're going to start at 23, and the chapter title is Lord of the Sabbath. One Sabbath, Jesus was going through the grain field, and as his disciples walked along, they began to pick some of the heads of grain. The Pharisees said to him, "Look, why are they doing what is unlawful on the Sabbath?" He answered, "Have you never read what David did when he and his companions were hungry and in need? In the days of Abiathar, the high priest, he entered the house of God and ate the consecrated bread, which is lawful only for the priest to eat. And he also gave some to his companions. Then he said to them, 'The Sabbath was made for man, not man for the Sabbath. So the Son of Man is Lord, even of the Sabbath.'" And I have written down there, a core value to God is that people matter, and people do matter to God. We're looking at Presence, Part 2. The disciples were walking town to town with Jesus, listening to him teach and watching him heal. More than that, they were getting to know him on a personal, intimate level. They were hanging out, telling stories, laughing, eating, and sleeping. They were communing with him. I'm guessing the more time they spent with Jesus, the less anyone else's opinion of them mattered. Then again, the Pharisees had power, and there were consequences for breaking Sabbath law, like imprisonment and even death by stoning. Wow, that's a pretty strong consequence there. I imagine the moment of confrontation had a few of the disciples shaking in their sandals. Perhaps the hotheads were clenching their fists. Maybe a few were so sick of religious regulation they'd grown apathetic. Regardless, all disciples' eyes were on Jesus as he stood his ground in the field of grain. And then he took the ground and told them, "The Sabbath was made for man, not man for the Sabbath. So the Son of Man is Lord even of the Sabbath." Mark 2, 27 and 28. Two sentences that were not great for Pharisee relations. The Sabbath was made for man, verse 27, meant that one of God's purposes in creating the law was to bless. He wanted people to rest and refuel, to spend time with family and friends, and to be intentional about remembering his blessings, provision, and constant presence. Hashtag self-care. The Sabbath was intended to be life-giving and in harmony with its first observance, the day God rested after creating all life. Conversely, not man for the Sabbath, verse 27, meant that man was not supposed to be burdened by the rule as if serving it. God simply desired communion with his people, void of the tasks that distracted them during the week. He wanted them to be present with him and for them to be more aware of his presence with them, the basic requirements for any healthy relationship. But then the conversation got dicey. The Son of Man is Lord even of the Sabbath, verse 28. Up to that point, perhaps a few of the Pharisees were tracking with Jesus. Lest we impugn King David. Perhaps this plucking thing wasn't worth our time. And he's right that God made the Sabbath for our good. Since these men were just eating and not cooking, we've probably bitten off a bit more than we can chew here. No pun intended. Wait, did he just imply he's Lord of the Sabbath? Yep. Jesus repeatedly referred to himself as the Son of Man, a reference not lost on the prophecy experts he was talking to. It's how Daniel referred to the coming Messiah in 6th century BC, Daniel 7:13. And now, Jesus used it to refer to himself and assert the only logical conclusion: he is Lord, i.e., he rules over the Sabbath. First David, then Daniel. It was a 1-2 Old Testament punch that threw the Pharisees off balance enough to end the exchange right there. For the time being, anyway. Here's the irony. These Pharisees' regulations, which protected the tabernacle pomp and circumstance they'd adhered to, and the Sabbath rest they so keenly enforced, were all there for the purpose of acknowledging and honoring God's presence. Yet, standing in front of them was the one their lives revolved around, and they refused to see it. So funny. The disciples saw it. The needy crowds that came from far and wide saw it. But these men so close in proximity to Jesus, both physically and intellectually, somehow could not. Perhaps if they'd been more willing to set aside the distracting tasks of the day in exchange for more of God's presence, they would have, because he was in the room. I love this one so much, don't you? All right, let's look at the prayer focus. God, today, I just ask you to forgive me when I have prioritized things over your presence. And also, Lord, I'm asking you for eyes to see where you are. And Lord, I just hope too that I can always prioritize people, that people are way more important than following the rules and trying to do this stuff, Lord, that people is where it's at. Let us always remember, Lord, to keep people first, even above the rules, Lord. It's just people need to be first because you loved people too. And I just pray, Lord, that you would just help us to just see people and also just to want to be in your presence, Lord. Here's the moving forward. Number 1, what do you prioritize over spending time in God's presence? Oh, that's a really good question. And unfortunately, yeah, a lot of things. I think like a lot of times I know I get distracted on my phone or even just trying to talk to people just in a fun way and not really maybe even, talking to them about Jesus. So yeah, it's really important to always try to keep him first and to be in his presence. I am pretty good about first thing in the morning coming to him and being in his presence, but then throughout the day, this is reminding me that I need to spend more time coming back to him, being in his presence, than being on the phone or on the computer or anything else like that. Number 2, in what area of your life are you rejecting Christ's lordship? I think one area might just be believing that he's got the best for me and just believing that his plan is the best, because sometimes when things go wrong, we just think, I don't know, God, if I'm really trusting you right now, But one thing I am good at, though, with just being under his lordship is tithing. And I hope that if you have never done that, just when you get your paycheck, and even if you feel like you can't do 10%, because tithe means 10%, but even if it's just 5% or whatever, I hope you do trust him with that when he gives you money that you can give some away, because my friend, you will be so blessed by that. So that's one area I'm really glad I am under his lordship, and it's really a lot of fun to be giving his money away. And number 3, what is your favorite thing about spending time with God, and what do you need to change to be able to spend more time with him? I love spending time with God. I love doing my devotions every day. I love reading the Bible. I love reading other books. It's so important, my friend. If you don't have a place and a time, find a place. This is my chair, my dog. Find a time. I usually do it in the morning, and just kind of be consistent with that, because the more you're organized with that and just really just build that into your day, my friend, do you brush your teeth twice a day? Yeah. So then you can spend time with God twice a day too, right? So just try to squeeze that in there, because when you make time for God, he just blesses your life, and he's just with you, and it's so comforting. And then what do I need to change to have more time with him? I think during the day, I'm pretty good in the morning, but then there's times I just get so busy that I don't stop. And I know one thing that I tried for a while, and I don't know why I stopped doing this, I should do it again. I would just set an alarm on my phone, at say 10:30, and then again at 1:30, and then at 4:30. So those 3 times during the day when the alarm would go off, I'd be like, I can take a minute, I can look up a verse, or I can memorize in my head, go over a couple verses I've been working on, or I could pull up a devotion on my phone or something like that. So I think during the day is where I need to try to prioritize a little more, and just kind of getting back to him, because as the day goes on, we get busier, and my mind gets filled with things, with work and kids and everything, and it's just really good when you set those reminders. It just kind of pulls you back into God. So if you have to set an alarm on your phone, do that. I do encourage you every morning to be reading your Bible or coming back and watching these devotions. And my friend, just know that he wants us to be in his presence. So I hope that you are in his presence today, and that if you haven't been for a while, that you just get back into that habit, because being in his presence is the best place to be. Love you guys, and I will see you back here tomorrow. You can get your own Chosen devotional mailed right to your house, Season 1 or Season 2. They also have great Bible studies from Season 1 and Season 2. Simply go to thechosengifts.com to find all kinds of great Chosen merchandise.